Hey everyone, I'm the Canadian lad, and I just watched the Loki episode 6 at 0.2 Febic speed, and boy what a finale that was. It didn't have a lot of fighting, didn't have a lot of action sequences, but it was so compelling thanks to Jonathan Majors, who literally nailed every scene he was in. Now I'm gonna break down scene by scene. If there's an Easter egg or a detail that I caught in slow motion, I'll explain that as well. But first, I'd like to take a minute to thank our awesome long-time sponsor, ExpressVPN. A VPN is a virtual private network which encrypts your data, allowing it to travel safely to its destination. With ExpressVPN, your internet data is encrypted and sent through a secure tunnel, similar to putting a postcard into a super secure envelope. Now, I want my private information to remain private. You wouldn't want random strangers looking at your search history, would you? Using the internet without ExpressVPN is like driving a car without insurance. You just shouldn't do it. And did I mention how easy ExpressVPN is to use? All you need to do is click connect, that's literally it. But ExpressVPN does more than just protect you and your data. It allows you to change your online location so you can unlock content not available in your country. I don't know if you lads ever watched Galaxy Quest, but it's a fantastic movie and it's not available in Canada. Luckily with ExpressVPN, all I have to do is connect to Italy and I can instantly watch this classic movie. Find out how you can get 3 months of ExpressVPN for free by visiting expressvpn.com/thecanadianland or simply click the link in the description below. This episode opens with one of the most unique intros of all time. We hear dialogues and catchphrases from previous Marvel films. Now I don't think I need to break that down because if you turn on the subtitles on Disney Plus, it literally shows you who's saying what. So I'm gonna skip this part. But notice as soon as we come out of this black hole, which was probably the sacred timeline, just beside that there's another one. And once we get inside it, we see multiple stars and planets crashing into each other, something we've seen already in Lamentus 1. Now here's one amazing detail that I found.
What is grief if not love persevering?
Notice as soon as we start hearing Vision's one of the most iconic lines, the color purple starts to appear and takes the form of an eye. This could be a visual nod to Vision himself, who is purple and has cybernetic eyes. We then see the sacred timeline still intact, and notice it is outside of this castle, meaning whoever lives inside it, time doesn't affect him, aka he who remains. Now notice when Loki and Sylvie approach the Citadel, we can see 2 giant hourglasses, something we've seen constantly at the TVA, and it makes sense as well, because Kang is a villain from the future, and I just can't get over the fact that Loki and Sylvie were actually witnessing the flow of the sacred timeline and didn't realize what it was. Now the Citadel has a pattern. It looks like he who remains built it by putting broken pieces back together, something that he himself admits later on.
All I have to do is manage the flow of time and prevent any further branches, hence the TVA.
Marvel then scared the shit out of us and gave birth to thousands of new meme materials. We see these 2 giant statues that have clocks as their faces. Now Miss Minutes' face is also a clock, so there's another pattern here. So whatever He Who Remains created seems to resemble a clock or the flow of time. And notice whenever Miss Minutes appears, she seems to be standing on some sort of a holographic floor. I mean, the attention to detail is always second to none. Cuts back to the TVA where we learn that Miss Minutes physically cannot appear in 2 places at once.
What took you so long?
Sorry, some things had to get worked out, but I'm downloading the files you need now.
Now Renslayer wanted to download data on how the TVA was created, but He Who Remains gave her some other information. Now what was she given? We'll talk about it later. Then Loki and Sylvie say this.
He who remains.
Not for much longer.
Notice Loki only said He Who Remains, while Sylvie said not for much longer. This was foreshadowing the choices they're gonna make at the end. Loki is gonna choose to save He Who Remains, while Sylvie will decide to kill him. We then see these 3 giant statues of the Timekeepers, and one more which is broken into pieces. In the comics, He Who Remains actually created 4 Timekeepers, but one of them, the Oracle of Siwa, was exiled. And then comes surprise surprise Jonathan Majors as a variant of Kang the Conqueror, aka He Who Remains. So it looks like Marvel has once again merged multiple comic book characters into one. And it's only fair, because in the comics, Kang actually studied He Who Remains to conquer timelines. Now his outfit is also a mix of all those characters. For instance, purple is a signature color, and this golden symbol on his chest is a direct reference to Immortus from the comics. Immortus, of course, is another Kang variant, also known as Nathaniel Richards. Now if you're getting confused, don't worry. I'll explain his origin story a bit extensively at the end. In the elevator, Sylvie attempts to kill He Who Remains, but he of course senses it way before it happens. Notice in slow motion, we can actually see him going left and right and then eventually ducking and dodging Sylvie's attack. We enter his office, where we can spot a bunch of files laying around on the floor. No wonder the TVA likes to do so much paperwork. Now both Loki and Sylvie were already underestimating He Who Remains. They should have known better considering there's only 3 chairs in the office. All of this were signs that He Who Remains already saw what's coming. And as soon as they both take their seats, he starts smiling, cause everything is falling into its place. Cut to the TVA where Mobius confronts Renslayer. But notice just before that, she was about to leave with all her important files, so whatever He Who Remains showed her must have come with some instructions to bring her personal belongings. We finally learn the secret behind this pen, which is that Judge Renslayer is a variant of the school teacher in Ohio. Now notice her actual name is Rebecca Tormine, which we see printed on her diploma. In the comics, Renslayer decided she wouldn't go along for the ride in a complicated future with Kang, so she escapes and changes her name to Rebecca Tormine. Now in this school, we get multiple Spider-Man Easter eggs despite it being in Ohio. For example, it talks about a recent homecoming, as well as a poster that says Tiger's Spirit, something we've seen a lot of in Spider-Man Homecoming. Tiger is of course a nickname of Peter Parker given to him by Mary Jane.
Go get him, Tiger.
Cuts back to the Citadel, where He Who Remains explains why he cannot be killed. It's because he knows it all already. Notice in the transcript, he doesn't write his own name. Instead, it just says me. This indicates he's really all-powerful, and nobody is working above him. He put himself in the system as me. And for Loki, we see his variant name L1130. Now, He Who Remains creates a conflict between these two Lokis.
Sylvie!
You think you can trust this guy?
Don't listen to him.
Don't listen to him.
Do you think you're even capable of trusting anyone at all?
Loki initially thought He Who Remains is trying to convince Sylvie not to trust Loki, but then Loki realizes he's not the problem, Sylvie is. Even if he becomes trustworthy, Sylvie will still not trust him, because that's just not in her nature. Which is why towards the end of this episode, Loki says this.
Because you can't trust, and I can't be trusted.
Notice when Loki said it, He Who Remains was smiling in the background, because he successfully managed to convince Loki of Sylvie's true nature. Mobius and Renslayer keep arguing about the TVA. Renslayer admits the TVA is a lie, but she says what if it's a necessary lie preventing us from falling into a bigger chaos. She decides not to prune Mobius this time, as she genuinely considers him as a friend. She opens a time door and just simply leaves. Mobius did ask, however, where was she heading, and this is what she said.
Where are you gonna go?
In search of free will.
He Who Remains then explains how he came to be and what he actually does, and we even get a name drop of one of his variants.
A conqueror.
Now he tells a story of how his variants helped each other before starting a multiversal war. Now, because he has technology beyond time, so whatever he was saying we could see it visually as well. For example, when he says amen, the holographic figures also change into praying poses. And throughout these visuals, we learn that whatever technology the TVA has, they got it all from Kang himself. The time door, the reset chargers, the odd-looking computers, and even the batons that the TVA used to prune someone, everything was originally invented by Kang. Now notice when he said not all of his variants were good, some just wanted to conquer new lands, we see comic accurate outfits of Kang the Conqueror. And as I said, there's a pattern in everything he does. Notice even these holographic visuals have cracks in them, just like we saw in the Citadel. We can even spot the differences between the Kangs. For instance, this Kang variant has glasses on and is wearing a suit, but this one is not. Goes to show how one Kang was superior than the other. We then learn how the first Kang variant weaponized Goliath and harnessed its powers. But notice while talking about this, He Who Remains showed some heavy emotions.
I weaponized Goliath, and I ended the multiversal war.
He probably reacted like this because he suddenly remembered how painful it was to harness the power of Goliath. He may have sacrificed a lot in order to achieve his target. And notice he says, I harness the power of Goliath, meaning he's the first variant, the most senior. He then tries to entice Loki and Sylvie with an offer. They either kill him and unleash an infinite amount of Kangs who will bring the multiversal war once again, or they don't kill him and rule the TVA, therefore preserving the sacred timeline. Now he also warns them that if they do decide to kill him and the multiversal war takes place, after it's over, he's gonna be back to where he is now. It's like a paradox, which he calls
reincarnation, baby.
Now Kang takes the time twister off of his hand, but notice he had it on for so long, it literally left a circle mark on his hand. Loki and Sylvie then have an argument. Sylvie is overly adamant that killing He Who Remains is the answer, but Loki thinks otherwise. He says he's a liar himself, so he knows when someone isn't lying. Loki is able to see the bigger picture. He sees the balance in the universe because of He Who Remains, but Sylvie is way too deep into her vengeance. Sylvie then throws Loki back to the TVA and kills He Who Remains, but notice immediately after killing him, Sylvie still felt incomplete. She didn't get the closure she thought she'd get if she kills him. So for a split second, she fears what if Loki was right and she is wrong. Now the last scene in the Citadel is a total poetic ending to this series. Notice even after Sylvie's alive, but she's on the floor. And even though He Who Remains is dead, but he remains on top. Just like he will always remain on top with countless other variants of himself coming to begin the multiversal war. One last detail from this scene, notice on top of the files he had another hourglass where time is up. This was probably the countdown to his own death. We see the timelines are not only branching out but colliding with each other. Therefore begins the multiverse of madness, from where there will be no way home. Loki then realizes he didn't come back to the old TVA at all. Sylvie sent him to another alternate version of the TVA. Or maybe she did send him back to the same old TVA, but the death of He Who Remains changed everything. As we can see, this TVA isn't run by the Timekeepers at all. Instead of 3, there's only one statue now, and that is of Kang the Conqueror himself. This statue has the exact same outfit of Kang the Conqueror from the comics. It has the same chest piece as well as the same belt. So yes, this pretty much confirms the arrival of Kang in the MCU. This is not He Who Remains, but Kang the Conqueror himself. Now, after watching this finale, I found an amazing hidden detail in the credits that was in front of us all along. Notice for a split second, we can actually spot the hand of Jonathan Majors, aka He Who Remains, probably researching Loki and Sylvie. So since episode 1, we've been seeing this in the credits and nobody caught this detail. Very clever from Marvel. We then get the official confirmation of Loki getting a season 2. And I still can't believe Loki kickstarted the first big bad of the MCU, Thanos in Avengers 1, and now he has kickstarted Kang the Conqueror, the second big bad of the MCU. So I don't think I'll be wrong if I say the character Loki has been the most influential throughout the entire MCU. Now, a lot of you have come up with different theories regarding this apple that Kang was eating. Well, my theory is that an apple a day keeps the doctor away. So now that there's no one to eat the apple, the doctor will see you now. As strange as it may sound, it is what it is. And that's it. This would be my breakdown of Loki's season finale at 0.25 big speed. I hope I was able to find details that you lads missed in your first viewing. If I did, then please give me a thumbs up, grab the subscribe button, and turn notifications on. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter to get updates about my videos. Till then, I'll see you lads in the next one.
We're all villains here.